That's a lot of money.
Going on.
Street sweeper, did you read this?
I don't know what the permit was for, 100 and some thousand.
Didn't.
But I mean, they bought the building.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome here, everyone. And at this time, I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Jake Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today we'll talk about the Centennial Arena, as it's going to be coming down in a couple of months. I think there's a story that needs to be told. But I'll give you a little bit of history. Back in 1946, so the year town incorporated, local sports groups already, as soon as there was a council, they started to approach the new town council about building an indoor arena. St. Pierre and Le Brocquerie had built indoor arenas that year. In July of 1947, T.G. Smith wrote a letter to the editor of the Carolyn News supporting an indoor arena. And the letter was written to the community as a whole, and in it he stated, "Let us provide our children with recreational facilities properly supervised in premises which we are all proud of." And he also challenged responses through the letters to the editor, and they appeared. And actually reading through them was very interesting. And one gentleman wrote, he said there was enough outlets for young people in church activities in Steinbach. They didn't need another place. And another claimed that children would learn bad language. But there was also the other side. Mr. P.S. Skinter also wrote a long letter of support of facilities for the local children. But TJ, who worked hard at establishing minor sports in Steinbach and will soon be elected into the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame as well. So he brought hockey and baseball to Steinbach. Let's put a little bit in perspective here. In 1960, Barkman Concrete built their plant in the Arm of Steinbach, where it sits today. So that was a little perspective of the size of Steinbach, and it was later in late 1960, that Steinbach actually annexed that in. But that was the size of Steinbach then. The Steinbach Playground Association was formed, and it was an inter-church organization, and the direction from town council was that they organized skating and hockey facilities in Steinbach. The first sheet was on Mill Street, which is now First Street, about where Shoppers Drug Mart sits. And it was for pleasure skating and hockey. In 1960, they built the new facilities on Creek Road, which is now Elmdale, and the present site of the T.G. Smith Centre. And included were 3 outdoor ice services, a hockey rink on the east side, 1 large pleasure skating rink on the north side, and a smaller learn-to-skate surface on the west side, all with lighting. The new change room, well, that still exists today, had 2 small change rooms, a lounge, and it included washrooms and concessions, and it serves today as a Piston dressing room. A portion of the land was donated by C.T. Loan and Sons, and in March of 1966, C.T. Loan and Sons agreed to sell additional piece to the city at a cost of $2,000 if the indoor arena referendum was successful. And the remaining land was purchased from Mr. Henry H.W. Reimer, who had a rooming house on that property. And so that was purchased in July of 1966. The town held a referendum, and it passed by 71%. 26% of the voters turned out to prove it. And the tender was awarded to A.K. Penner & Sons for $106,000. The referendum was for $95,000, but from July to October, when they awarded the contract, there was 2 main reasons why the price went up. It was because of financial considerations, because the cost of money and borrowing had gone up, as well as there were some supply issues. Sound familiar? And the town borrowed the money over 20 years at an interest rate of 7.5%. The arena was, now my information told me the arena was completed without obtaining any provincial and federal grants, but there were Centennial grants available, but my understanding was the town gave that grant for the museum construction, which was happening at the same time. The general contractor was A.K. Penner & Sons, and the site supervisor was R.B. Krentz. And the Kinsman Club supplied and installed the sound system and the booth, announcing booth at a cost of $2,900, and the booth is still in use today. Official opening was held March 2nd, 1967. Guest speakers were MP Werner Jorgensen, MLA was Gil Molgat, Mayor L.A. Barkman and Billy Mosienko of NHL fame scored the fastest 3 goals in the NHL in 21 seconds for the Chicago Blackhawks, and that still is a record today. Mr. T.G. Smith was L.A. Barkman talked about T.G. Smith at the opening. He said he's an individual who instigated, inspired, and united people of Steinbach to build the arena. The event was attended by over 2,000 people, and Jake Siemens was there as a 10-year-old. And it is recognized that the first person to skate on the new ice was the supervisor, site supervisor R.B. Krentz, and the first official goal was scored by Herb Martel playing for the East End Eagles. The first flooding machine was purchased by Huggard Equipment for $175. It was a 2-wheeled unit that was pulled by hand. Generally, it took 2 people to pull it, and the ice cleaning was done by volunteers using heavy steel ice scrapers. Then it was shoveled over the boards and to the back exit doors, and the canteen was managed by the Kinsman Club of Steinbach, and they received a 5% commission. The first person hired, or actually in 1966, the person hired, Mr. Ernie Taves, he was hired to run the arena that first winter, and over 800 different individuals would show up for pleasure skating on a Friday and a Saturday. Cost of going pleasure skating for under the age of 14, it was 15 cents and 25 cents for those over the age of 14. And but you could buy a season ticket for pleasure skating for $2.25. And ice rental was $10 an hour. Less than a year after opening, after lengthy discussions at council, they held another referendum for $60,000 to install artificial ice. It easily passed the vote and tender awarded to C.T. Lowen and Sons, together with Steinbach Lumber, installed the concrete floor and the piping. Final cost there was $75,000, including the building addition. At that time, then they bought an ice scraper, a tractor mount ice scraper, and the tractor was donated for the winter months for many years by Reimer Farm Supplies. The fans were more involved in the hockey games in early years, as the wire mesh at both ends allowed for verbal and other objects to get players' attention, especially those standing in the northeast corner. That was always a bad corner, even when I worked in recreation. The fans sitting in the first row had easy access to the hockey game. Unlike today, there was no barrier as to what happened on the ice. So if you're sitting in that bottom row, 3 feet away, and there was an altercation on the ice, the fans were involved. And more than one occasion, the scuffle, the players ended up with the fans involved in what was happening. In 1973, A&H Glass installed plexiglass, replacing the wire mesh at each end, and it was also installed along the bleachers so fans couldn't be quite as involved in the game. Cost of plexiglass was $2,400. In 1985-86, plexiglass gave way to tempered glass, and in 1988, the silver ceiling was installed as an alternative to repainting the ceiling every 5 years, because ice chips in the spring would actually fall to the ice, creating a problem there. The front lobby addition on the northwest side was completed in 1974 at a cost of $170,000, and that was supported by a $78,000 provincial grant. The addition included lobby, concessions, larger washrooms, and 4 dressing rooms like it is today. The Centennial Arena has hosted many different events other than hockey. The Knights of Columbus hosted an indoor track meet in February for about 8 years. And the ice was covered with plywood, and the running track was installed by volunteers of Knights of Columbus. On Fridays, the local schools would use the track, and on weekends, hosted a provincial competition. And the arena also hosted one year the SCU annual meeting in March. And so we had to, again, put in insulated floor. This one thing about the unique thing about this event was, in order to get a permit to hold the event, the provincial fire marshal required to have the city fire trucks on standby at the arena. And so in the off-season, the very first rental was the Barry Moo Crusade in 1968. So instead of having these tent crusades, now they could use the arena. And so car shows, monster truck shows, Shrine Circus for a number of years, and it was also housed the RCMP musical ride horses for 2 different occasions. And included auction sales. A group called, that played here in Steinbach, my generation, it was a group called Up With People. which had 3 sold-out performances. Tammy Baker played here and other touring groups. And the first year of operation, the arena hosted its first professional wrestling matches coming out of Winnipeg. Imagine that. The arena was named Centennial Arena to recognize Canada's centennial year. But it's also interesting to note that La Broquerie, Niverville, St. Pierre, Vida, Winkler, and St. Agathe all had arenas named Centennial Arena. The outdoor rink was added in 1979 at a cost of $9,000 with labor and material donated by the Kinsman Club of Steinbach. In 1995, the second ice sheet was added at a cost of $1.6 million. And then 2015, the theater and curling rink at $10 million. Mr. Mayor, that's a very short story of where I got to at this point, and it's important to understand how we got here. Hopefully a history of the Centennial Arena will be posted somewhere in the new event center so it isn't a forgotten piece of Steinbach history.
Thank you, Councillor Siemens, for that story. That we've talked about it at home too, that it's going to be bittersweet. Get a new spectator rink, but the old barn will get torn down, and that's a place where I grew up. Our son grew up, and we've watched many fantastic NHL style hockey games, in our opinion. But thank you very much for sharing that with us. Council, we have the agenda in front of us, looking for motion to adopt. Just before we do, we'll be working off the amended agenda that was in our mailboxes earlier. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Swagstra. Any comments?
No comments.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, the minutes of April 4th, 2023, the regular council meeting. They are on page 1. We've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert. Second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
No comment.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Council, there are no public hearings today. There are no delegations, so we'll move on to reports and recommendations from City Manager. This is 8A, this street sweeper purchase approval. Starts on page 3. Mr. Workney, could you please introduce this file?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a recommendation from administration for the purchase approval of a street sweeper unit for the city. The city's existing unit has reached the end of its life expectancy, and the administration has investigated purchasing options. While there is a pre-approved tendered source being provided through the AMM Municipal Purchasing Group, through its own direct efforts, city administration was able to secure a price from the proposed supplier, being Joe Johnson Equipment, for a lower price. And as a result, administration recommends City Council approve the purchase of an Elgin Pelican sweeper as specified for a price of $349,157.59 plus taxes, with the ultimate trade-in of the old unit being applied to the overall purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Workney. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Siemens. Go ahead, Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, it's important to make sure that we have the best equipment in the city to make sure that maintenance takes place. In this case, this is a street sweeper. I'm pleased with the diligence of our staff here. Obviously, trying to get the best price that we possibly can, because these are obviously tax dollars that are being used. And through their efforts, they were able to find, make a direct purchase through a company that was lower than the publicly sourced pricing process. And so the proper channels were followed as far as exploring the different options, and they were able to find a price that was better than the publicly sourced process. And so I think it makes sense to approve the purchase.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Well, council, I think it was all said well. I think we can go ahead and approve. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll go to 9A, the accounts payable, back of the book. We've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
No comments.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have 9B. We've got building permits. Councillor Penner,
Motion to approve?
second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Yeah, we are off to a very strong year, and what's interesting, even if you take out the 62 million from the recreation center, it's still a really strong year. I know a couple of years ago, the first quarter was 9.7 million, and then last year was 10.2 million. So even without the event center, we're at 12.9 million. So that's a big increase, especially in an economy that we know is facing some challenges. Yeah, so building units in terms of family units is not significant, but there's still a lot of residential, a lot of commercial coming through, so that's exciting.
Thank you. Anything further?
Well, notice we have one large company that's, or a large building going up to the tune of 3.5 million, low on auto body. So that's nice to see the confidence that the business community is putting in our community.
Thank you. Anything further? Anything in closing?
No, nothing further.
Yes, council, I would completely agree with Councillor Penner. It is a very strong start for the year for the first quarter. To be above the last 2 years, like both, like with the 9.7, 10.2, as she had mentioned. But as I go through our city, it's just great to see the development that's going on. On my way home from work every day, I pass by two massive projects. The event center that's going on from us, but also they're getting ready for the hospital expansion. And you can see Penco's got their stuff, they're doing site prep. And you just see all these fences around these, the construction fences. There's just so much construction going on in our community. It is just, it's mind-boggling that at a time when interest rates are high, you know, even employees are difficult to get, but yet we are growing, and it's just so encouraging to see that in our community. So I'm just really, really thankful and really, really excited to see the growth that we are seeing in our community. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Got 9C, we got business licenses. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
No, nothing further.
Any further? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any questions of council? Seeing none, we'll move on. We've got the correspondence and petitions. We've got 11A, Minister of Municipal Relations, referring to the Mobility Disadvantaged Transportation Program. Council, would you like to proceed? Take it as information at this time. Okay. And we've got 11C. This is the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame Museum. This is an ask for an advertisement or congratulatory message to support T.G. Smith being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, as Councillor Siemens has alluded to in his opening. Council, how would you like to proceed? Take his information? Oh, no, you would like to speak to it?
I'd like to speak to it. I'd like the city to be involved. We did this when Vic Peters, we were involved with the Vic Peters when he was nominated and accepted into the Manitoba Curling Hall of Fame. I think T.G. Smith is someone who has had a big presence in Steinbach all the way back to 1946. And the effects of what he has done in our community are still evident today. And I mean, we have the arena complex named after him. And so I think that's quite an honor. But we can honor him further. Now, this is the baseball, and talking to his son, Bob Smith, the other day, he also talked about his dad starting baseball in Steinbach, and nobody played baseball in Steinbach. And so when new people, when he was looking for new people to work at the Royal Bank, as he was a manager there, he would phone Royal Bank headquarters, said, make sure that they bring their ball glove and their hockey skates with them, because they have to coach when they get here. I need baseball coaches, right? So through his efforts, even through the Royal Bank, bringing people to Steinbach, he made sure all of those guys were involved and that they could coach baseball. Because while he started the program in Steinbach, they had no baseball coaches, right? And so, but his efforts over all the years that he was in Steinbach, he had a huge impact. And not only, well, this is baseball, but he had a big impact on baseball in Steinbach. I think we should, certainly we should be buying an ad.
Okay. Okay, council, is council okay if I would work with the administration to come up with an ad for this, like a congratulatory message? And so we have consensus?
Yep.
Okay, then we'll do so. Thank you, Councillor Siemens. There's no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.